All right, I'm live. Wow. Okay. Hey, everyone. I don't know how many people I'm going to get on this because if my math is correct, it is like 5 in the morning on the East Coast, which means for people on the West Coast, it's probably like 2 in the morning then, right? And anyway, it's mid-morning here in Portugal, and I thought I would go live, and I'm doing this for a couple of reasons. The first reason I wanted to go live today is because I've just had a really busy stressful week and decided that I just did not have it in me to do a full-blown video this week. So really the primary reason here is for me to say, listen, I'm sorry, I didn't get a video out this week. Um, I will be back at it next week, but just had a lot going on, had a lot of stuff hit the fan, if you know what I mean. And so I'm not expecting a whole lot of people on this call today, but sorry, I got a cat over there making some noise. But I wanted to just have my coffee, go on. If people have questions, will try my best to answer some questions. I haven't done one of these in a while where I just go online and answer questions. And so I thought I would try and do that. I've got another cat right there, evidently. So anyway, that's the deal. So feel free to post a question if you've got a question. Give me a second. I've got to let the cat outside because now he won't stop meowing. It's actually a she. She won't stop meowing until I let her out. I'll be right back. All right, so back. Okay, so I do have some questions. If nobody posts, that's fine. Let me see here. Let's see. Also, if you can hear me, let me know. I'm just reading through this. I haven't gone live in so long, and YouTube has changed the way they do it. So I'm just. All right, we've got that. Okay. The authentic chick says, I can hear you. Good morning. Good morning to you. So let's see here. Let me pop up my screen here and find, and I like to do this. I'm just going to do random questions. I just want to show you this is going to be authentic. I'm not here. I'm not pre-screening any questions. I will answer questions that come through the stream if I can get to them all. But I'm also going to go online and answer some comments that people have posted. Let's see. All right. And I'm going to pull this up on 2 separate windows so I can see everything. And again, all right. Got them both. Okay. So I don't see any questions yet, which is fine. Keep in mind, nothing I say here should be construed as legal advice. I'm not giving you legal advice. I'm not your lawyer. If you post a question here, be careful about that because if there's no attorney-client privilege when you post a question on YouTube because I'm not your lawyer. There's no attorney-client relationship. And also even if there was an attorney-client relationship, like if somebody that was a client of mine popped on here and asked a question, that would still not be privileged because they're waiving privilege by posting it to a public forum. So anyway, that's my little spiel. So I'm not going to be able to get deep into stuff, but let's see what we can do here. So I'm just going through some of the most recent questions or comments that I've seen here on the channel. Let's see. I'm trying. Let me find a good question. Okay. All right, this is good. All right, so this is from Amy Maldonado, who posted, no one ever answers the question. If I have an EIN for my sole proprietorship, I'm aware I have to make a new one for my LLC, but what happens to my old one? How can I cancel it? If I switch over all to my LLC in all platforms, will I still have to file a quarter sales tax for my old EIN if I'm no longer doing business under it? Okay, so that's a great question. And it is a question that nobody really ever talks about. but it's a really good question. So when you switch, if anytime you switch, like if you move from one state to another with your LLC, then you have to set up a new EIN number because it's technically a new. There's ways to get around that. I will say this: there's ways to get around it so that if you want to move your LLC from one state to another, you can do that without forming a new entity. Um, and there's a couple of different ways to do that. But for most people, the easiest way to do it is going to be to just dissolve your LLC in the state that you're in and then form a new LLC. And when you do that, you have to set up a new EIN. Same is true if you have a business that's operating as a sole proprietor and you want to switch to an LLC. When you form that LLC, it's a new business entity. You have to get a new EIN number for the business. So what do you do? What do you do with the old one? Well, the IRS isn't going to cancel that old one. It's still going to be there, is my understanding. But when you do your tax return, and I don't know if this is true with the Schedule C, for most business entities, the IRS will ask you, is this your last tax return for this business? And you'll just click the box that says yes. And so when you close out your sole proprietorship, and you file that Schedule C, and again, I don't know, I'm not an accountant. I don't know if there is a spot to check the box to say that you are no longer operating that sole proprietorship. But basically what you would do is you would let the IRS know that, hey, this sole proprietorship is closed. There's not going to be any more tax returns for this. I believe that's what you need to do. In terms of sales taxes, now I don't know how it is in other states. I know where in my business in North Carolina, I have my legal template store, and there's a link down below if you're interested in getting a legal template. But with that legal template store, I file my sales tax return about once a quarter or so, and I do it manually. If there's no sales that come in that I need to pay tax on, it's frequently the case, because in order for somebody to pay tax for my store, they have to be a North Carolina resident purchasing from me. So anyone who purchases a template from outside of North Carolina, which is the majority of people, do not have to pay a sales tax because there's no nexus. And that's automatically figured out by Shopify. So in that case, if I didn't receive any funds from anybody for that quarter that I would have to pay, that I have to reimburse the state for sales tax on, then I don't file the return. And so if you stop doing business under your sole proprietorship, then you need to make sure, if you're collecting sales tax, that you stop collecting sales tax under that tax ID number, and you need to switch to the new LLC and make sure. So if you're using a service like a Shopify or something like that, then you want to make sure that you switch it over to the new EIN number. Hopefully that makes sense. All right. I got a question from the Authentic Chick, who says, I want to do a trademark and start a business dealing with the brand, but I would like to know if I should wait to start that business until trademark is done. Thanks. That's a great question. Obviously I'm a trademark lawyer, and my law firm does, I'd say, 95% of what we do is trademarks. Do you wait to start the business until the trademark is done? I would say no. And the reason I say no is because the trademark process takes 12 to 18 months to finish, from start to finish. So that's from when you go ahead, do your search, file your trademark application. Then you got to wait like 8 or 9 months for the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office to assign an attorney, have the attorney review your application, and then the attorney will either issue an office action or just send it on to publication. And then from there, you still have another 3 or 4 months, because it's got to go through publication. That usually takes a couple months. Then it's a month for publication, and it's another couple months after that before they get around to registering your trademark. Now, so the process takes a while. So I would say, if you're looking to do a business and you want to build that business around a brand, which is the best way to do it, and the most profitable way to really build a business that's going to be unique to you, then you really need to make sure you take care of handling that trademark stuff on the front end. But then also, um, your trademark is never going to register unless you are actually selling under that brand, if that makes sense. So you cannot, a trademark is tied to use in commerce. So if you're not using that trademark in commerce, i.e., you're not selling anything, then your trademark isn't going to register anyway. So in order to answer your question, um, you definitely do not want to wait to start the business until the trademark is done, because the trademark will never be finished if you don't actually take the step to start selling and either goods or services with that brand. Hopefully that makes sense. Ulrika says your cat wants out. Yes, you must have just popped on at the beginning. Yes, we let the cat out. I love having a cat here to meow at me 3 or 4 times a day to go in and out, in and out. All right. Okay, so I've got another question from hold on a second. I'm just going to let this person know I answered her question. And let's see. I got another question here from Evolution20, who asks, your video is filling in quite a few blanks for me. And he was watching a video that I did about blogging and legal tips for bloggers. And this must have been a while ago. I don't know when I did this video, a long time ago. Anyway, my thoughts were to start with a sole proprietorship in the beginning, then move to an LLC once it starts to generate a decent cash flow. What are your thoughts on this? That's a great question, Evolution20. And my thoughts are, my thoughts have changed over the years. And my thoughts used to be that you should wait to start your LLC. Well, depending on the business. So if you have a business that is low risk, you don't have a lot of assets to protect, you're not generating any cash flow, then wait to start your LLC. But my thoughts on that have changed somewhat over the years. And I did an updated video on that. And basically, and real quick, I'm just going to respond to this. Let's see here. For Authentic Chick says wants to learn about my trademark services. So I'm sorry, somebody wants to do that. I'm going to go ahead and post the link. And I'm going to post this to the top, pin that to the top. So if you're interested in trademark services and what we do, I posted the link to the top. That goes to a video page, and then you can schedule a call with me through that. Okay, so the question was, going back, sorry, lost my train of thought there for a second. Starting with a sole proprietorship or starting with an LLC. So my thoughts used to be to really start with it just as a sole proprietorship, especially if it's a hobby business. And if it's a hobby business, you may just want to make it a sole proprietorship anyway. But the reason for that being that if cash flow is tight, then maybe it doesn't make sense to start an LLC right away. My thoughts on that have changed. And I am very adamant now with people that you really want to go ahead and get that LLC filed as quickly as possible, especially if you're serious about your business. So if you are serious about your business, then an LLC and a trademark are the two things that you really need to get taken care of at the very beginning stages of your business, because they're really just foundational. Now, I will say this, if the name of your business is descriptive, in other words, it kind of describes what you're selling, and there are strategic reasons maybe to do that, although I would still encourage you to try and come with something that is not quite as descriptive that could be trademarked. A descriptive name cannot be trademarked. So then that may change your analysis for you. But for most people, I would say when you're just getting started, you really want to get that LLC formed. And it's easy to do. It's inexpensive. It doesn't cost a lot. It's honestly, it's more just upfront work that you have to do, setting up the bank accounts and getting everything set up. But once you do that, then you're set. And the reason why I say do it at the very beginning versus like 6 months or 12 months down the road, once you start generating revenue, there's a couple reasons. Reason number one is once you start going with your business and you've got the bank account set up, it's easy to just keep doing it the way you're doing it. And you don't want to necessarily, it's going to take time away from the business to set up that LLC now. And it's not the setting up the LLC that takes the time. It's the setting up the LLC and then getting another EIN and then opening up new bank accounts and then transitioning everything over. Like transitioning bank accounts sucks. Like that's probably the worst part of it. It's for me anyway. I hate that. And it's funny because we're in Portugal now, and I thought about moving my LLC to Florida for tax reasons. And I have two businesses, the law firm and my digital media company that I would have needed to move. I ultimately decided against doing that. And the reason I decided against doing that is number one, we might come back to the United States at some point in the not too distant future. And if we do come back to the United States, then I don't want to go through the struggle of moving them from Florida back to North Carolina. Because if we come back to the United States, we're going to stay in North Carolina. That's where our house is. That's where our friends are. That's where we want to go back. But the reason not to move it is it's just a pain in the butt to do. So get it done at the very beginning. That's the number one reason. Get it done now while you've got the time. Set it up all the right way from the very beginning. It just makes it a lot easier to do it that way. The second reason is if you do want to apply for trademark protection for your brand name, which I would recommend, then you have that LLC set up and then you don't have to worry about. Now you can set up a trademark with, if you start out as a sole proprietor, you can set up your trademark, you can file as a sole proprietor and the sole proprietorship owns the trademark. But you're adding in, again, something else that you have to do later on down the road. If and when you can do it in the middle of your application or after your trademark registers, you have to draft an assignment. Most people don't know how to do that, and who aren't lawyers. So there's an additional cost associated with that, because then you have to assign the trademark to your LLC once you form the LLC. So it's just another thing to do. So for that reason, that's why I say get it started at the beginning. And then there's a third reason I would say why I think it's really important to start your LLC from the very beginning. And that is because there's this mental thing that's going on, right? And I really firmly believe this. I think the more you do to invest in yourself and your business to legitimize your business legally, I think the more successful you're going to be in the long term. So that would be the other reason. So anyway, so for the question, yeah, so that's why I would say just go with the Evolution 20, go with the LLC from the very beginning. That's my recommendation there. All right, let me go back over here. AMC Analista Master says, I tried to have the EIN number and they asked for social security number, ITIN number. This is for foreign non-resident LLC. Yeah, you're going to have to go through special steps because if you do not have a social security number or a tax ID number and you do not live in the United States, then there's additional hoops that the IRS is going to make you jump through to get that. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult for you. Sorry about that. But that's the way it is. I mean, it was the same for me when I moved to Portugal, right? I had to hire somebody here in Portugal for me to get my Portuguese tax ID number here. I couldn't do it because I wasn't physically in Portugal. So it's the same with the United States. If you're outside the United States and you need to do that, you're probably going to need to either hire somebody or jump through some more hoops to get that. Okay, let's see. Go through some more questions I've got here. All right. So somebody asks, and so I assume I said in the video to use a registered agent for your LLC. Um, they've got a weird scrambled name. Scoob, I think 123 is what they're trying to do, or Scooby 23, except it's spelled really weird. Anyway, so the question is, so can't I just put myself as a registered agent and just use my virtual address? No, you can't do that. You can put yourself as a registered agent, but you cannot use a virtual address for the registered agent. In all 50 states, the address for your registered agent has to be a physical address. It can't be a post office box, can't be like a PMB number, can't be anything virtual, can't be anything like that. It has to be a physical address where somebody lives or works and is available during normal business hours to accept service or process if you get sued or you receive some sort of official correspondence. If that does not happen, if you put something down that is inappropriate and they try and serve you and it's a post office box, it's going to get returned and you could get a default judgment entered against you. You could, all sorts of bad things can happen. You can miss important notices that you're supposed to get. So, no, do not, you can't do that. You have to, this is why I recommend using a corporate registered agent. It typically costs 100, 200 bucks a year. It's a pain in the butt. I know nobody wants to pay that bill. I hate it. I've got it for 2 of my businesses. I use the same service that I recommend to people. And whenever I get that bill for, 150 bucks or whatever it is each year, I hate paying it, but it's just something you got to do. Cost of doing business, right? Okay. AMC, yeah, I don't know. I don't specialize or handle foreign tax ID numbers, so I'm not sure what the process is. I just know that it's more complicated. Okay. Edge 3, I think is what that is, or maybe it's Edge with the 3 is the E backwards. I'm not sure. People do all sorts of fun little things with their names now. All right. Hey, I have a question. I have a business running, but I want to have it registered. Want to do this full time. I make money, but to do taxes and all that at the end of the year, don't have any employees. It's a small construction company. Do I need an LLC or how can I do taxes or register, etc.? Yeah, I've kind of already answered this question. So yeah, you probably would want an LLC. It's a small construction company. You're definitely going to want an LLC because if something happens to you, or if you do end up hiring, you say you don't have employees, maybe you have contractors. Yeah, you're definitely going to want an LLC for that. You're going to need insurance. You're going to need all sorts of things for what you're doing. You might want to talk to a local attorney that can help you. So I'm going to go ahead and reply to you and let you know I answered your question. Okay. Hi, Jim. And this is from Richard. He says, I have one product in mind. If I end up producing multiple products, should I create an LLC for each product or keep it all under one LLC? I have an LLC name thought out that is related to just the one product, but I'm afraid that I would be shooting myself in the foot if I end up making different products. Let's see. Okay. So there's multiple issues going on here, Richard. So the first issue is I have the LLC name thought out that is related to just one product. This is fundamental when it comes to trademarks and everything else. The name of your LLC does not have to be related to the product or your business at all, for that matter. The name of your LLC can be anything you want. The name of your LLC is what goes on your contracts. It's what goes on your privacy policy on your website. It's what goes on, your terms of service, anything like that. The footer of your website, that's where your LLC is going to be, your LLC information. Your brand name, if you do decide to trademark a brand, that's going to be kind of the front-facing name that people are going to recognize that's associated with your business. Okay. So that's the first thing. So Now, if you say if I end up producing multiple products, I don't know what type of products you're producing, but my general rule, this is the general guidance I give to all my clients, is one LLC per business. So it really depends on what the business is. Okay, so if your business is, let's say, if you're building a brand around camping, for example, okay, and you've got some sort of like camping gear, and that's your one product that you've got, like maybe a backpack. Let's say you've got, and you're only going to be selling backpacks. So is that one product one backpack, or are you going to have multiple backpacks? So if you created different products that were multiple backpacks that you're going to sell, or maybe you have a backpack and then you also decide to sell a sleeping bag, those could all be under the same brand name, which would be under the same LLC. That's all the same business. But then let's say you decide you've got this kind of outdoor theme going on and you're starting this camping business, but then you also decide to start like a surfing business, okay? And so you're going to sell surfboards. Well, number one, the while that could technically be under the same brand, that sounds to me like a different business. So that if somebody is looking for a surfboard or surf shorts or surfboard wax, or I don't know what else you buy related to surfing, but I'm sure there's a ton of products that might all be under a separate brand, but that is also kind of a separate business. Similarly, let's say you decided that you wanted to start a consulting business teaching people how to start, an e-commerce business. Well, that would be a separate brand. That would be a separate LLC. So you see what I'm saying? So one business per LLC. And the reason for that is for liability reasons. Honestly, that's the biggest reason. If you were to get sued or something like that, you don't want people, if you have one business that has all of your products in it, all your different brands in it, which is fine. You can do it that way too. Then if you were ever to get sued by somebody for whatever reason, then they could come out, they could get all your businesses, as opposed to if you had an LLC here, an LLC here, an LLC here for different brands, then they can only get the one LLC. This is why the recommendation for people that own rental property is typically to put, maybe not every rental property into a separate LLC, but if you have, 10 rental properties, then maybe you put 3 in one LLC, 3 in another LLC, 3 in another LLC, and just kind of do it that way. So, and the reason being, if somebody gets hurt in one of your houses here, they can't also get your houses that are over here. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to go ahead and mark this as answered. Okay. Let's see what other questions I have coming in. AMC Master, can a foreign non-resident LLC sell to the government? I don't know how to answer that question. I'm sorry. Yeah. All right. Hello, I want to start my application for a C10 electrical license. Should I register it in my name? Should I start an LLC first? I have no idea what that means. Sorry. Let's see. Okay, so this person commented on, and this was actually, it sounds like a lawyer. And they agreed with my advice on not starting an LLC right away. So this is from my video that I did a while back where I said, it says LLC, not so fast. It's got me waving a finger. A lot of people maybe have seen that video. It says the title of the video is "Don't Form an LLC Until You Watch This: 3 Reasons You Should Not Form an LLC." Anyway, this law firm said, "Great advice. I usually start with my take on reason number 1. Go make 50,000 first, then we can talk about an entity. Before you've done that, you're using your money on something that won't actually help you. Make money in your business." and again, like I said, I don't necessarily agree with that anymore because, if the most expensive LLC out there. So the three states where it's most expensive to form an LLC are Massachusetts, which has the most expensive LLC startup fee. I think it's like $500. I want to say. Um, New York, where it's not that expensive to actually form the LLC, but then you have to publish, and publication typically costs $1,000 to $2,000. I recently did a LLC for a client that was in New York City, and I think it was like $1,200 to publish his LLC, which is a requirement in New York. Um, and so all in, it was like over $2,000 to start that LLC. Um, so, and then the third state is going to be California, where it's not expensive to start the LLC, but then once the franchise tax becomes due, it's $800 a year. So those are the three states where it's the most expensive. If you're in any other state, and if you can afford to pay for it in one of those states, I still would say go for it. But if you're in any other state, the fees to start an LLC are typically a couple $100, sometimes less. Like there's some states where the LLC startup fee is like $50, and they don't have an annual reporting fee. So it's like if you're in one of those states, it's a no-brainer. You just go start your LLC. So I would say, number one, it depends on how much how much money you have to do the LLC. If you can afford it, I would definitely say you need to start at the beginning. If you're in one of those states where it's really, really expensive, and I did talk to a client recently, and I can't remember where she was located. She might have been in Massachusetts, where, her business was only making like, $10,000 a year or something. And I said, listen, let's talk again next year, because right now you're only making $10,000 a year. We'll get your LLC started after, you build up the business this year. That's what I would say. So, anyway, let me mark that as, let's see. Larry says, how do you close a business? That's a good question. So there's going to be a lot of steps to closing a business. I'm not going to get into all of it now, but let's say if for sake of argument, Larry, what you're talking about is like, how do you shut down the LLC? Then you typically need to file a dissolution with the state where your LLC is registered. And like I said, you're going to do your last tax return. That's a great topic for a video. I probably should do that, because there's going to be people out there who maybe are closing one business and starting another business. I think I might, maybe that's a good topic for next week. I'm going to write that down. But yeah, so yes, I will. So I would say, number one, you need to file some paperwork. Usually it's called articles of dissolution, with the state where the LLC is located, and make sure you do that, because some states, if you don't do it, they could charge you a penalty. I know Delaware has a pretty hefty penalty. I think Delaware charges a pretty big fee just to dissolve the entity anyway. So if you're thinking about, oh, I should start a business in Delaware because that's where all the big corporations do it, but that's not my state, don't do that. So you would need to file the paperwork with the state, and then there's a bunch of other things that you're going to need to do, legally speaking, with contracts and websites and all sorts of things. But then also the thing that you're going to need to do is you'll need to file your final tax return. And like I said, and I should look up if Schedule C, does, because we talked about this earlier on the live stream, checking the box to say that this is your final tax return. Just making a quick note. And my cat wants back in. Hold on, give me 1 second. Sorry about that. My favorite thing about cats is when you open the door to let them in and they just look at you like they've been meowing outside. You can see them through the window, but they just look at you like, what? Why'd you open the door? I don't understand. So I had to shovel him in. Yeah, you have to do a tax return. So, Larry, you would need to do a tax return definitely on the federal level to let them know it's your final tax return. And then also, and if you're just a sole proprietor, like if you're an LLC, taxed as a disregarded entity, you're going to file this with Schedule C. And then if you have lost my train of thought because the cat is meowing again over there. If you do owe state taxes, then you might need to do something at the state level too. Okay, let's see. What other questions? So if I'm a general all right, I got to let the cat. Hold on a second. Sorry. Go. Come on. Sorry about that. Okay. All right. So this is from Chloe. She says, so if I'm a general contractor, my main concern would be to have protection if a vendor gets injured at a job site and claims he is owed income for not being able to work, which setup is more advantageous, LLC or S corp? That really has no bearing at all, Chloe. That's a great question. So if a vendor gets injured at a job site, and claims he has owned income for not being able to work. So I don't know what state you're in, Chloe, but if a vendor gets injured at a job site, now I don't know if you mean vendor, like is somebody, typically when you're talking about a vendor is something that is selling something to your business and then they would leave. But I think what you're really talking about is a contractor or an employee gets injured at a job site. You need the issue with that there is you need workers' compensation insurance. So you would need to check and see if you need workers' comp insurance. It would not matter. S corp is merely a tax election that you use for your business. It has nothing to do with liability. There's no liability protection for an S corporation. It's just a tax election. So yeah, if a vendor gets injured in a job site and if the vendor works for somebody else and comes on your job site to do a delivery and they get injured on your job site, then they're probably going to be covered under their employer's workers' comp plan, not your workers' comp plan. And if you're doing something with job sites, then you probably need to have workers' comp insurance. So I don't know if that answers your question. Again, I don't know what state you're in, but there you go. Okay, Kathy says, I'm 21, married with a baby, living with my parents, paying $500 a month in rent for a tiny little room that barely has any space for us to walk in. My husband and I woke so much and make miserable amount of money, not enjoying our baby enough. I want my own business. Okay, well, so you didn't really have a question. But yeah, I'm sorry about that. I would say, yeah, start making some money. And I don't know if starting your own business, Kathy, is the right move at this point for you. You've got a baby. It sounds like, I don't know if your husband, I think woke so much. I think you meant work so much and make a miserable amount of money. I mean, maybe you need to find a better job, or you're only 21. I don't know what you're doing. But yeah, I'm sorry you're going through that. I'm sorry about that. Acesoria Contable says, thank you for your information. What bank do you recommend to open an account? Let's see. I actually, for business purposes, if you're starting an online business, I would recommend RelayFi. And if you give me a second, I think I have a link for that. Let's see if that link works. I can't find the link, but if you Google RelayFi, let me see here. Then that's the provider I recommend for online business. If you're not, if you don't think that's a great bank for you, or if you want a different bank, then my recommendation would be to, oh, here we go. Sorry, people. Here's the bank I would recommend. If you wanted something, if you want something more local, then I would recommend finding somebody in your town that might be able to help you or establish a relationship with a banker in your town. That's the best way to do it. Keeping on says, if I start an LLC in the States, how can I legally move it overseas? I don't know. I don't deal with overseas LLCs. All of my businesses are in the States, even though I still live in Portugal. I actually have a friend here in Portugal who is trying to figure out whether or not he should open a business in Portugal. I'll be honest, I have no interest in doing that. Number one, because like I said before, we're still trying to decide whether or not we're going to stay here or we're going to go back to the States. But number two, I don't deal with any Portuguese clients. All my clients are in the United States. So Andrew says, appreciate your educational content, Jim. You're welcome. Thank you for input. You're welcome. All right, let's see. Let's go through a couple more questions. Okay. Thomas asked, do I have to have a separate owner's pay or owner's distributions bank account to pay myself out of? Since I have the paper trail via checks and carbon copies to prove the transactions in the account or owner withdrawals, can't I just run everything out of my business checking account and not have a separate account? The only members in the LLC are myself and my wife, if that matters. Thanks for all your advice. You've been incredibly helpful in all your videos. That's a great question, Thomas. And I would say, no, you do not need to open up a separate owner's pay account. The reason I recommend that is because I follow Mike Michalowicz's Profit First system, and there's a couple reasons. I follow his system, but because I've followed his system for so many years, I like the idea of transferring money out of my operating account into a separate owner's pay account and have my payroll run from there. And I think the reason for that being that it's really it's almost insurance in a way. Like I know that I don't want to. It gives me peace of mind knowing that if the money comes out of the operating account into the owner's pay account, that's my money that I can use. And the only time, and I only transfer money with checks. The only money that comes out of the operating account is, for the most part, is to pay the credit card. So I run my cash flow. The way I do it is when I get paid by clients, it goes into my operating account. I run all my expenses through my firm credit card that I then pay off at the end of the month. I don't think I do it all at the end of the month. Like I pay it off periodically, during the month, but then at the end of the month, it's always gets paid off. And I do that through the operating account. So the only real expenses going out of my operating account are the payments to that firm credit card and then the distributions to my other accounts. So Thomas, to answer your question, no, you do not need to have a separate bank account, but the more I dig into Profit First and that method and that Mike teaches in his book, and I highly recommend you check out his book, the more I like it, and the more it gives me peace of mind for my business. It does get a little bit complicated with your books, but it's not horrible. Larry says, how long are you planning on staying in Portugal? Well, our house is rented through the end of 2024. I think that's right. We're in 2023, right? Yeah. So at least through fall of 2024. So we will likely be headed back. Well, I don't want to say likely because we don't know yet. But if we do end up heading back, it'll be sometime towards the end of 2024. We'll see. We don't know. We haven't decided yet. We'll see how it goes. Let's see. Okay, Gabe. Let's see what Gabe has to say. Grateful as always for all the time you invest in helping us. Could you please do a video on the proper way to pay, receive funds back and forth between your LLCs in a holding subsidiary structure? Each are multi-member LLCs. How does a parent LLC properly give its subs funds? How does a disregarded sub properly funnel money up to its parent LLC? How are these cash movements officially recorded for taxes? All right, Gabe, you need to talk to a lawyer. It's way more complicated than probably is necessary for 99% of people. So I'm not going to get into that question because honestly, I wouldn't even know where to start. That sounds like a whole webinar right there. Sorry. Ben says, great tips, especially the registered agent. Definitely didn't know the ramifications of making myself the registered agent. Awesome. Let's see. Okay. Here's a good question from Jonathan, who says, how would I find out what licenses are needed for my LLC? I'm looking to do e-commerce with non-CDL box trucks in the lower 48 states. Non-CDL, assume that means commercial driver's license box trucks in the lower 48 states. The business is based in Maryland. I do plan to have employees driving my trucks as well. Thanks. What licenses are needed for my LLC? Well, if the business is based in Maryland, I would look for you, Jonathan. You're going to be dealing with multiple state issues, and trucking, it sounds like, but non-CDL box trucks, I'm not sure how that works. Yeah, I would start with Maryland, where your business is located, the county, city, state, or obviously state, county, city, where you live, and you want to check that out. And then you probably also want to check with the federal government. I'm sure there are multiple regulations regarding trucks and how they can work. So that's what I would do. All right. Sorry, I can't be more help on that one. All right. Let's see. Forming an LLC by a lawyer and having them act as a registered agent seems to give more discretion. This fact is thanks to the lawyer-client legal relationship of trust provided by law. After all, a lawyer cannot simply provide information about his client. So from the point of view, it seems better to work through a lawyer. Am I seeing it wrong? I don't think you're seeing it wrong. This is from Address. Having them act as the as a registered agent, if a lawyer is a registered agent, there's no attorney-client relationship there. You can hire a law firm to be your lawyer, and there's going to be an attorney-client relationship. They can provide a service as a registered agent, but that has they don't have any discretion to not like communicate things to you if they receive it as a registered agent. So I think you're kind of misinterpreting what the attorney-client relationship can do and the limitations of that. Yeah, but the registered agent doesn't give out information anyway. And And if your business was going to get sued, the fact that you have a law firm serving as a registered agent doesn't mean anything. It just means that, if anything, it could be potentially a problem, because if the lawyer, I guess, would have to accept service as your registered agent. I think they can probably do that, ethically speaking. If they're not your registered agent, they can't accept service for you, unless you sign a document. So I think you're misunderstanding how the registered agent thing works, in terms of with a law firm. Okay. When would you recommend having an S corp? I recommend an S corp when your business has hit anywhere between $25,000 to $50,000 in revenue, or I should say net profit. The reason for that being that anything below that, and you're losing all the tax benefits with the additional costs of setting up the S corp. So if it costs $2,000 to set up an S corp, you need to make sure you're receiving at least $2,000 of tax savings from that S corp. Does that make sense? So, I mean, because you have to do things like set up, payroll. You have to file a separate tax return. You have to do all sorts of different things as an S corp, that you would not necessarily have to do if you're a sole proprietor. So I would recommend you need to be making net profit at least $25,000 to $50,000 per year to make it work. And if you have questions about that, I would talk to an accountant who maybe can help you do the analysis. Okay, let's see. A couple more questions. We've been going for, how long have we been going? We've been going for almost an hour. Maybe I'll go another 5-10 minutes. Let's see. I am a barber, and all I do is make my clients happy with their haircut. That's awesome. I mean, I don't think anyone would sue a barber, especially if you provide good service. So I realize that I don't really need the LLC, rather just file my DBA. Thank you so much for the honesty and the great message. Appreciated this. Is all I need to hear. Okay. I mean, that's possible. It depends. I mean, there's lots of different barbers out there. If you're a barber who plans on growing your shop, and like my barber back in Cary, he had his one barber shop, and he hired other barbers to come in and work for him. And I assume he took a cut of whatever they earned, and then he rented, space with the business. And then he also then purchased another barber shop. So, I mean, I think his plan is to kind of franchise his barber shop and go all over the state of North Carolina. So, I mean, I would say, if it's just you and you just rent a chair somewhere from somebody else and you're just cutting hair, maybe not. But if you actually are renting space where, you have a commercial space and customers are coming to your establishment, and, they might not sue you if, for a bad haircut. But if they come in and maybe you or one of your employees didn't sweep up the hair properly, and somebody slipped and fell and smacked their skull on the concrete floor, from, because the hair wasn't swept up, then there's a products liability, or there's a premises liability claim there. So I don't think you gotta think a little bit broader than just, is somebody going to sue me for cutting hair? The other issue, if I don't know, what if you're giving somebody a straight razor shave and you accidentally nick them really bad and they have to get stitches? I don't know. There's issues that could come up. So I would not say necessarily that you shouldn't have an LLC, Ron, although I understand why you're saying that. Okay. This is such a helpful video, Jay. My name's Jim, but that's okay. Starting a business can be, and this is from Munira. Starting a business can be overwhelming, but you broke down the process into simple, actionable steps. Your channel is a fantastic resource for anyone looking to start or grow their business. I appreciate all the insights you share from your own experiences. Thanks for sharing. All right. I don't think there was a question there, but thank you for the kind words. Okay. Okay, this should be interesting. This one is from a CPA in California, also commenting on my LLC video about not forming an LLC. It says, I have at least a half a dozen clients with single member LLCs. A couple of these have several. These LLCs are disregarded entities that file all zero tax returns. Oh, I should also mention one of the other benefits of having that LLC is if you did elect to form an S corporation at some point, it can revert back to the beginning of the year with your LLC. But if you were a sole proprietor and you wait until the end of the year and you're making money and you realize that you should have an S corp, your S corp can only go back to when your LLC was formed. Okay. Anyway, back to the question. A couple of these have several. These LLCs are disregarded entities that file all zeros tax returns and pay the minimum state tax. Pay me to prepare these and pay me again to report these on Schedule C on their personal returns and pay self-employment tax. Another thing I see that I don't understand is that several of my clients go out and set up retirement plans with administrators and advisors, while in the past the clients didn't contribute to an IRA. Your video is excellent. Keep up the good work. Oh, okay. You didn't actually have a question. So basically what he's saying, he's saying that he has a bunch of clients that have gone out there and set up their LLCs and don't make any money, and pay all this money to manage the tax returns for those LLCs that aren't making any money. And that I think he thinks that's kind of stupid. So, okay. That's what he's saying, I think. All right. If anyone has, I'm probably going to stay in a couple more minutes. I realize it's early on the East Coast, so nobody's probably watching this. Should have done it later in the day, but what are you going to do? If you have questions, go ahead and pop them in the chat. I'll try and get to them. I've only got a couple more minutes here, and then I got to hop off. What if this is from Rod. What if the name you want to use shares some of the same words as an existing business? Example, tech roofing versus tech red roofing. I suspect this is for purposes of a trademark. I'm not sure that either one of those names that Rod that you suggested are going to be capable of a trademark because they're descriptive. Also, it depends. Was one of the names registered as a trademark? Because I doubt it is. Like, if you're forming a business called Tech Roofing, that sounds pretty descriptive to me that you're a roofer. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. Now, if it's Tech Roofing, but you're building like furniture, then that's a different story. But I don't think that's the case. I want to sell an app I built. Do I need to hire a lawyer? Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, you're going to need a contract. Probably set up a brand. You might need to trademark the brand of the app. You need to set up an LLC. You need a contract to sell the app. I don't understand. Does it mean you want to sell the app like you want to sell the business, or you sell the app, you want to sell the app to people to as an IT kind of business? I'm not sure, but yes, regardless, you're probably going to need some sort of multiple issues there. You want to sell the business. Okay. Yeah. If you want to sell the business, I would reach out to a business broker. And there's a number of them online, and get everything in order so that you can sell it, because you're going to need to show financials and customer lists and all sorts of things. Okay. LMAO, Salt Life Girl says, LMAO. You rock, Jim. I think most people do it because it makes them feel legitimate. Super video. Talking again about my LLC video. Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate the confidence there. Okay. Jose says, I create puzzles, warning small parts. God, sorry. My neighbor upstairs just decided to drop something loud on the floor and scared the crap out of me. Okay. I create puzzles, warning small parts, 5+. If people ignore and end up suing, LLC helps. LLC not me gets sued, but if LLC is mine, Jose, yeah, I mean, yeah, you've got a disclaimer. Um, I don't, I'm not a big fan of children's toys for that reason. I think there's a lot of liability associated with that. I've had kids. I know what kids do. I know kids don't read those warnings. Um, yeah, I mean, you probably want some business insurance as well. The LLC is definitely going to help you as long as you operate it properly. But if the LLC can't cover a judgment, then you might need some insurance. Let's see. All right, where are we at? We're over an hour now. Let me just see. I'm going to answer maybe one or two more questions. All right, this is a good question probably to end on, I think, unless somebody else posts something in the chat. For those starting a business, can you please explain deeper on how to get payroll, workers' comp, and all of that, pay taxes, what to claim for deductions? It's so confusing. I'd appreciate it. I just subscribed. Yeah, so I'm going to put. All right, just posting. Yeah. So for Flores, I would just go to my preferred vendor is Gusto. I've used them. I use them for two businesses, and they handle it all for you. Make it really easy to do your payroll the right way. I think they offer workers' comp insurance, which you only need if you have a certain number of employees. It depends. Every state's different. But yeah, I use them, love them. And so I would recommend looking into them if you need help with that. Let's see. Okay, I think I should come back and do well here. One more. I'm sorry, it's like crack. I can't get away. All right, Robbie says, I'm an Uber Eats driver who works 60 to 70 hours a week, and I hear so much on YouTube about needing an LLC versus not needing an LLC. I'm confused. On one hand, I ask myself, who would possibly sue me as an Uber driver? Maybe if I get in a wreck, but outside of that, I don't know. On the other hand, I know I'm still learning, and I'm willing to learn and do what I need to continue this successful way of earning income. Would forming an LLC simply to lower taxes be a worthy benefit in comparison to the yearly LLC fees, etc.? So, again, Robbie, there's a couple of things you need to be aware of. If you are an Uber Eats driver, number one, I don't know how much an Uber Eats driver makes. So, typically you're going to be a 1099. And if you wanted, I mean, you could set up an LLC to then receive the income from your Uber Eats work. I don't know if that's overkill or not. And I don't know if you make enough to warrant the S election benefit. And the reason why I bring that up is because you talk about somebody suing you as an Uber driver. If somebody sues you as an Uber Eats driver or an Uber driver, the only way you're going to be personally responsible is if you, well, I got to be careful what I say here. It's listed in the contract. You have a contract with Uber, and I believe that Uber also requires you to have some sort of insurance. And so if like you're driving on Uber and you get in a wreck, I'm not sure that the claim is against you personally. I think the claim might be against Uber, and I'm not sure how that works. So I would recommend reading the contract that you have with Uber or Uber Eats and seeing what they say about that. So I'm actually not quite sure. I would need to review the contract, and I have not done that. Marco says, what is the role of the registration? registered agent towards foreigners when opening a company? Is it even possible I'll register a company as a non-resident? Thanks. Yes, it's possible. I have people do it all the time. It's just a little bit more cumbersome. You definitely need that registered agent. Also, you need a business address in the United States. I think that's right. The registered agent has to be in the state. So, but typically you're going to need a business address in the state where you're operating out of as well. But I'm not sure that's actually 100% required. So I'm sorry if I'm being a little flippant on that. I'm not trying to be, but every state has different rules. And so you want to check with the state where you're setting up the LLC. And if you're a non-resident, you pretty much can set that up anywhere you want. But you would definitely need a registered agent in that state. Okay, one more question. This is a good one. Can you put money in? This is from Purple Butterfly. Can you put money into the LLC account from your personal account or cash to keep it going when you're new, when you're between money and need to pay bills through the LLC? Thanks. Yes, absolutely you can. That's the way most people do it. Because you need to fund the LLC somehow. And so most people take money from themselves and they loan it to the LLC, or they do it as a capital contribution to the LLC. And yeah, that's completely appropriate and fine and legitimate. And then you would work that out when you do your taxes. If that's something you do want to do, I would recommend talking to an accountant to make sure that you do it the right way. Okay. All right. It's been a little over an hour. I think I'm going to hop off now. I think I've done my duty to record and post a video for this week. I apologize again that I didn't do a normal video this week, and got some great ideas from today's live stream on videos that I want to do in the future. And yeah, thank you for being here and listening to me ramble on for about an hour about different legal stuff. I am going to run. My coffee is gone. I need to get another cup. And have a great day, folks. And if you're on the East Coast or West Coast, good morning. It's almost afternoon here. So take care. Talk soon.